So, as you can tell from the title, we are going to be ranking every single character in LEGO Battles. So, right off the bat, uh, these characters down here, I couldn't find an image for them. I just kind of ripped these off online. As you can tell, the low poly, whatever. The king is going to go straight up into S tier. He is, as a starting hero, like, no unlocks. You already have a great hero in versatility. For the most part, the hero's stats don't really matter, actually. It's the spells that actually matter more than the actual stats. I mean, the stats help a little bit. Like some of the guys later on, you'll see why they're really low or really high, but he has 1000 health and I believe 4 damage, which is very decent. It's not the best, but he has Earthquake and Tree Growth. Earthquake is a high damage AoE spell that honestly is kind of broken. I'm pretty sure Earthquake can one-shot builders. And the Queen, for some reason, LEGO Battles just does not like the female versions of the heroes. Like, for some weird reason, the female versions are just worse, but they have more speed. That is like either they have worse damage, worse health, but they'll always be faster. Now, some people may argue that speed is important for a hero. It is to an extent, but what I care for is survivability. If the hero has less health, then they're not as survivable. I'm pretty sure the Queen just has 1 star less damage and 1 more speed. I'm not sure about that. I don't have their stat sheet up, but whatever. I'm just gonna believe from memory. Uh, Dwarf King. Now, in terms of stats, he's actually better than the King, but I'm gonna put him down in like D tier area. He has a spell that doesn't work. All right, I'm kind of stretching that term loosely, but what I mean by that is that his hammer throw spell, for some reason, will just not work if your team is in a group. So, how it's supposed to work is similar to the wizard's fireball. When you select it, you have to tap on the screen where you want to shoot the hammer throw. But if it hits one of your teammates, it'll just disappear. Another thing that hammer throw in particular does is that sometimes it'll go the opposite direction that you shot it from. Next up is the wizard. He's kind of average, I think. He doesn't really have much going for him. Like, he has lightning and fireball. Lightning is supposed to be some sort of AoE, but I feel like the hitbox is not big enough. Like, the hitbox is like a T and an X on the screen. The thing is about this is that it's like a very thin line, and it usually never hits anyone unless they are exactly lined up within this X and this T, versus the fireball, which you can just shoot twice at a single opponent. And then, the sorceress, just worse than the wizard. We have the Troll King. The Troll King has some good stuff up its sleeve. He has Roar, which is a better version of Earthquake, because that thing can rip through buildings and other units. That thing just does a ton of damage. Also, I did forget to mention the mine buff for the Dwarf King. It's useless. The Troll King has logging buff, which is a little bit more useful, as trees are kind of a good resource for getting money. Like, the reason why these guys are up here too is that tree growth is super valuable for long-term play, because in some maps there's not a lot of trees, and if you run out of trees and you don't have a way of respawning them, or if you don't even have a mine, then you're going to be losing money. So these guys are good for just keeping a constant flow of money. And with logging buff, what it does essentially, I believe, just makes your units mine faster, mine trees faster. I'm not too sure. I'd never use it. Like, it would be really useful if he had tree growth and logging buff, but there's no heroes in this game that have both of these spells. He's the only hero with logging buff, which is kind of weird, and the only hero with roar, I believe it's called. Yeah, it's kind of weird how he has two really unique spells only to him. After that is Brickbeard. Now, I used to main Brickbeard when I first got the game and like kind of just got all the characters. I used to think he was a lot higher just because of like his stats alone, like 5 damage, the most damage, and 1000 health. Like, what can he ask for? But I'm gonna put him in fair next to the wizard because Crabstorm's really good against buildings as like an offensive hero. That's what Brickbeard's really good at. I think he's probably a better offensive hero than the king. I still think Crabstorm's a little bit worse in some ways. And then there's Monkey Swarm, which is kind of an interesting 1v1 kind of spell. It's a good spell to use against one unit or a building. I forgot what her name was. I think it was like, oh, it was Lady Pirate. Yeah, Brickbeard, worse stats, higher speed. King Kahuka, another S tier. He has actually. Okay, so here's the thing about the tree abilities is that the king and the queen have a unique property where when you use tree growth, it shoots it in a line, while Kahuka and the rest of the other tree growers shoot it in like a block. And I believe the line just gives you a little bit more trees, and it's better for making walls as well, because you can use the tree growth as a wall to kind of like block your opponent for a very short time. Although it doesn't work against flying units, yeah, King Kahuka still has tree growth, which is super valuable, and he has Coconut Swarm, which is a pretty darn good move. It's not great, but it still has like an AoE effect, and it only hits a single spot over and over in an explosion. So it's good against buildings or a unit that's kind of stationary, like a tower. So that's kind of useful. I'm going to put Governor Broadside because they have relatively the same stats. I'm going to put Governor Broadside a little bit higher because he has 1100 health and 4 damage, while Kahuka has 5 damage, 1000 health. It was called Artillery and Coconut Swarm. They're the same thing. They both have tree growth. I think they have like different secondary spells. I'm not gonna mention the secondary spells, there's 3 of them, and each hero can have 2. The first one's like an increase to damage to your units, increased speed, and increased defense. Because I keep forgetting who has what. Yeah, Camellia, a worse Governor Broadside. Just that's it. Ninja Master. He's kind of an interesting one. He has one spell that only one other character has. It's Teleport. What Teleport does is when you use it, your hero will always go back to your main base or wherever you first spawned from. And it's kind of unique. It's really good for Hunt the Hero. So like you can bring your hero off to a corner somewhere, and if your opponent finds them, then you could just use Teleport to bring them back to your main base. But that's kind of it. But yeah, Teleport's kind of niche. And then the other one was like an Arrow Volley. It does damage in one spot. It's kind of okay, but it's still good if you want to just throw damage to something. We have Gemma. Gemma is going to be... So, in terms of stats, Gemma has like the worst hero stats. She does 1 damage and has 900 health. It's kind of weird because Gemma has 2 really good spells, which is the laser and EMP. The laser is very similar to Crab Swarm, where it kind of just shoots in an area where you tapped at. And I think it does a little bit more damage than Crab Swarm as well. And then EMP, which is quite honestly a really, really broken spell, where they can just freeze your opponent's special units. And for special units, they're really broken. Some special units are just straight up bannable, almost. And yeah, Gemma can just go, no, you can't use your 4 alien assault ships, which we'll get to those in a little bit. We have Biff, who's the better Gemma. Honestly, I think I might just put Biff up here just because he has straight up better stats. Like he has 1000 health, 4 damage. The only thing he doesn't have against Gemma is that Gemma has range, but like the range doesn't make much of a difference unless you really don't want to be attacking. But like still 4 damage is really intimidating. That's kind of like what a hero has, is that they have like an intimidation factor where like if your opponent sees a Biff and they only have like 2 guardsmen, they're gonna start running. If they see a Gemma, they're like, okay, maybe I can take this Gemma on. Like I think you could kill a Gemma with like 3 cavalry units. Like she's not that strong, like at all. While Biff, he has a little bit more health and a little bit more damage. We have the Space Police Captain. He is terrible, absolutely terrible. He has Space Laser, which is pretty good. I mean, I would say even then, like his spells, like just his damage spell is slightly better than that, but he has 1 damage and 1000 health and like range. He has 100 more health than Gemma, and like that's the only thing going for him. Because instead of having EMP, which is a really good spell, he has tracking, which is the most useless spell. It's like even more useless than hammer throw, because like hammer throw still works half the time, well tracking just conceptually it's a great idea for a move to like spy on your opponent, but like that's only if your opponent takes that 1 unit away, and like you can't even hide it. Like it shows a dog icon above their head if you put tracking, so like your opponent will know that you just use tracking on them, so they're gonna just throw them into your base to get killed anyway. We have the Alien Commander. He is the best, like the absolute best hero in the game. Like he has ESP, which is a great anti-hero move because it freezes base units, not vehicle units. But the thing is, you'll have way more human units, you know, base units, and you could just freeze a huge group of them. And like, you can't do anything. You could just get your troll giants or your assault ships to just kill them all while they're frozen, and they can't do anything about it. And it's like and it'll last quite a while too. Uh, Another thing, he has tree growth as well. He has 5 damage and 1000 health on top of these great spells. The Alien Queen, what I know about the Alien Queen is that she just has less health. She's the only female hero, I believe, that just loses health. Kind of sucks that you take so long to unlock the female heroes and they're just worse than the male versions. Like the only thing is Biff is unlocked after Gemma. We have the first hero that might be a little bit controversial for some people, but I'm gonna put him in A tier just because of Hotwire alone. Now, I don't think there's like a community, but from what I've gathered with a couple other people I've played with, is that Hotwire is kind of overrated. I don't think so, because Hotwire is a buggy mess, and it's a buggy mess in your favor. So in PvE, you force your opponent to use transport ships. You can hotwire those transport ships over and over and over. You can actually potentially get an unlimited number of transport ships. It's such a great bug to not mention. You can also hotwire your opponent's heroes under the right circumstances. Like, you can hotwire anything, potentially. He also has Bomb Drop, which is a surprisingly heavy damage spell. I think more damaging than Roar. I'm not like 100% sure, but it does a lot of damage to vehicles for like no reason at all. Now we go to the special heroes, which I again couldn't find an image for them, so I kind of just had to Google search some and just pick them out. Classic Space. He had Space Laser and ESP. I'm gonna put him in A tier because he doesn't have tree growth. Unlike Biff, Biff is great because he has EMP. It's kind of weird how these like special kind of heroes don't have great stats for some reason. Like they're kind of like middle of the road, like weirdly middle of the road because like most of these heroes have like 4 damage, 1100 health, 5 damage. Well, like classic space is like 4 damage something or 3, I don't know, but classic space just kind of goes here. Agent Chase, kind of the same boat as the alien criminal leader where he has Hotwire, but he also has tree growth. Now, I say these two guys are kind of interchangeable because this guy kind of focuses more on damage and he does more on utility with tree growth. Though Agent Chase is a little faster than Criminal Leader, so that's kind of what he's got going for him. He just has less health. That's like it. So, Conquistador, he had Crab Swarm and Mind Buff. Yeah, he's like not that great. Like, I would actually put him lower because he doesn't even have Monkey Swarm. He just has Crab Swarm and Mind Buff. Yeah, he's like the only other unit with that, and they're like, Mind Buff's kind of useless because you need to have a mine, and you kind of have to have your hero next to the mine. And most of the multiplayer maps, your mine is like out in the open, so you kind of have to expose your hero out in the open just for them to help a mine get more money. And like money isn't that hard. The better strategy is to like just continuously place trees like what the higher tiers do. A Ghost. He's kind of fair, I guess. He has Earthquake and Fireball. You're never going to use Fireball, use Earthquake. Just don't even use Fireball. Earthquake's a great damage spell, like what I said with the King, but that's kind of all he's got going for it. I don't really have much else to say. Forestman, he has that, I believe, arrow volley and tracking. Yeah, he's not that great. He's one of those low damage ranged heroes for some reason, and it's like, whatever. Again, arrow volley wasn't that high of a damage move anyway, and tracking is just garbage. Forestman, now he is actually going to go pretty high up because it really depends on if you like artillery more or laser more, because he is the other hero with EMP. Like I said, EMP just kind of stops vehicles from moving, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, he has artillery. I think laser might be a little bit better, but I kind of just like artillery for its just AoE in a constant spot. The sheriff does 1 more damage than Gemma, so he's kind of got that going for it. But again, stats don't really mean like a whole lot except for your base units. Then we have Santa. He's kind of situational. Probably the worst tree growing hero, because the thing is about Santa, he doesn't have any damage spells. He has teleport and tree growth. Like, teleport is a weird move. I mean, it's kind of obvious to put it on Santa, and tree growth, okay, I kind of get it. Move you down here. Move you down here. Move Gemma up 1. Okay. This is what the real tier list looks like. Yeah. I mean, we can debate all day, but I say this is like a general idea of like what this kind of feels like. I also might rename these tiers just because. So, okay, this should be a quick one for the builders. For the most part, the builders don't really do much except for the aesthetic you want. Although there is like one thing about the towers. That's about it. The 2 space ones have like a different tower upgrade rotation kind of for their projectiles. I'll explain it a little bit. King's builder, basic. He has flat health, 150 health. Nothing to change. This guy, S tier, Wizard's builder. Actually, I might just move you up to B tier because. But yeah, for some reason, I forgot to mention this in the previous one, but it didn't really matter. Uh, there's a weird hidden stat in Lego Battles. So it's basically how much damage they do per second, because some characters like attack just slightly faster than others. So for some reason, this guy and I believe the alien are the only other builders that attack slightly faster. It doesn't affect their tree mining speed, but like still, it's kind of useful to know. Like if you're doing a sort of builder versus builder, he's like the best builder versus builder. He also has the most health. Like that's it. Pirates, he goes into C tier. He has the worst health of all the other builders, and he doesn't have the good damage either. So I actually might just put him into D tier. Governor Broadside's builder. He has the most health along with the wizards, except he just doesn't have the fast attack speed. Like you could literally like interchange these guys and there'd be like zero difference because all these guys can still get 4-shot by a max damage hero. All right, let's talk about the space ones real quick. So for their tower ones, they're all the same, but for their tower twos, I guess I'm going to call them the Earth-based builders. They shoot at like a lobbed projectile that can like shoot in an arc, while the Space Tower ones shoot at like a straight projectile, like what most other projectile characters do. The Earth-based builders have a straight projectile for the Tower 3, while the space ones have a lob projectile for the Tower 3. Something to note that the difference between the buildings is just the tower lobbing, and sometimes you could like make some use for the being able to shoot slightly past a mountain, because you can't shoot through mountains or over a mountain, but it kind of shoots around a mountain depending on like where you position the tower and where your opponent is. It's kind of just interesting. So yeah, you're slightly better. Yeah, so we're doing melee. I think they had a different name of some sort, but I'm just gonna call them the melee units. So guardsman, A tier. He does 1 damage and has 350 health. He actually has the most health of all the melee units, which is pretty good. Although the 1 damage isn't that great. I mean, 1 damage is kind of common for most of the basic units, but 2 damage is a little bit better, though his health still keeps him up here in A tier. You have the dwarf, which has slightly less health, but a little bit more damage of 2. Yeah, I think when put up against each other, the guardsman can beat the dwarf, but I still think damage is a little bit more useful. But again, the guardsman health definitely keeps them up here. So if you want to make a more like tanky build of your team, then the guardsman's good guy to go. The dwarf, still pretty decent, I would say. Skeleton, he's gonna go straight into F tier. What's kind of sad is like the Wizards team has probably some of the worst units. For now, just know you're gonna see a lot of the Wizards skeletons just at the bottom of the list because they're just trash. I don't know what the devs were thinking and just like, oh, let's just make the Wizards have the worst units in the game. Like, so what he does is that he has, I believe, the least amount of health you can have, least amount of damage, but he has 3 speed. So he's fast. He's just the fastest ground unit, I think, for basic melee units. The troll, for some reason, he's like worse dwarf. Like the dwarf has 2 damage, 250 health, while the troll has 1 damage, 250 health, and they're like supposed to be interchangeable between each other, but like, why is the troll just worse than the dwarf? Like, objectively speaking, he's just straight up worse. I have no clue why. It's just how the game wanted to do that, I guess. I just might move him around. The Oarman. The Oreman is B tier. Like, pick him over the skeleton if you want a fast unit. He has the same speed as the skeleton, but he has 350 or 300 health, which is slightly less than the guardsman. He's still pretty decent if you want to make like a scout based unit. Actually, I think I would prefer that because the other units would be way better for damage and tankiness, perhaps. But for the most part, yeah, that's kind of where he sits. Swordsman next to the dwarf. I'm just gonna put him over the dwarf. These two have like the same stats if you just look at their sheet. I don't know if one of them's faster than the other. I think he's faster. I don't know. These two guys are kind of interchangeable. So, the trooper, S tier. Yeah, so he, for sure, I know, has the faster attack speed. Yeah, he has 275 health. If he was fighting guardsman, he could beat the guardsman. I believe these two can beat the guardsman. So, like, a swordsman can just beat a guardsman one-on-one. The guardsman can beat this guy can beat that guy, so on. So, yeah, trooper's just the best. I think he's slower than the guardsman, but that's about it. Now we have the drone, which is like right here. Yeah, he has that 225 health, same as the skeleton. He has 2 damage though, which is kind of nice, but he's just worse than the trooper. Same with the alien units. Like, the alien units are not as bad as the wizard skeleton units, but they're still not great. Yeah, like, for some reason the villains get the short end of the stick. I'm just gonna move you up here just because. But yeah, I just don't use the skeletons. Just don't. All right. Range units now. Archer, straight up S tier. Like the king, he's the best. He's actually the best range unit. You do not have to buy any other units. Like, just ignore any other range unit. He's just straight up objectively the best range unit. Like, he does the most damage any range unit can do. He has the most health any range unit can have, and he has the most speed any range unit can have. Like, it's kind of crazy to think that your starting range unit is the best one. It's like, it's all downhill from here. Crossbowman. Okay, so surprisingly good. Actually, not that good, but like, he's like the one decent wizard unit. But even then, he has a weird thing. So there's another hidden stat in this game called range. Lego Battles is kind of like a grid, so I'm just gonna call like each space on a grid a square. But yeah, for some reason, all the characters you get from the villain's side have 1 less range than all the other units. I believe, not too sure about this, but I'm pretty sure it's like 6 range for everyone, and these guys have 5 range. But like, it's just weird. I find it just so interesting that like these guys just have less range. He also just has 500 less, or not 500, 50 less health than the archer. The gunman, I might. So yeah, the gunman has better range than these guys. Yeah, the gunman just has 50 less health, but he has just a tiny bit more range. Although there is an argument to be said that range doesn't really matter. I mean, it does, like a tiny bit. Yeah, I might put these guys just down just slightly, but know that you could potentially just have better range than this guy if you choose the gunman. So yeah, the Islanders, he's basically the same stats as Crossbowman, but he has 1 more range. Like, straight up better than this guy. That's all can be said. Rifleman, worse than the gunman. Same stats, but the gunman is just better at range. Don't know why this game does that, but it just does that. Ninja. Okay, like the trolls and the dwarves, like, the ninjas are supposed to be the competitors to the Islanders, but the Islanders have more health. Like, why? Why do the Islanders get more health? And I think the ninjas just look cool. I love ninjas. Like, come on, who doesn't love a ninja? But yeah, with ninjas, I believe just same as the gunmen. I think they are a little bit faster and they cost less. But commando, uh, these guys have 300 health but 1 damage. So I'm pretty sure these guys can kill the commando. So like a single gunman can kill a commando, but I'm not 100% sure. I keep saying that, but again, my memory's a little bit fuzzy. But yeah, I like the guardsman. The commando's kind of good if you want to make a tank character, if the archer didn't exist already. But yeah, uh, these guys, the policemen, they're trash. 1 damage, 250 health. The 1 damage really hurts these guys. Like, they really hurt. Same with these guys. These guys, they're they're the same. These guys are straight up exactly the same. There's no difference between these two. And then you have the aliens, which are these guys, but with less damage or with less range. Excuse me. Yeah, you can't go below 1 damage. So yeah, don't use this guy. He also costs more than these guys for some reason, which I think is the only other advantage to pick like the unlockable heroes. Is like I think this guy's slightly cheaper than the archer, but again, it's the archer. The archer is the best one. Okay, so yeah, your mounted units are going to be your most valuable. So yeah, these guys usually have the best stats of the other units. But yeah, cavalry or no, not the cavalry, the knight. He's kind of okay-ish. He's kind of good. He does 3 damage, 300 health. He's all right. He's I might put him down actually because compared to the other mounted units, he's not that great, but he's still kind of good for what he does. Then you have the wizards. Do not use. He has the same stats as the archer, and the damage is not consistent between units for some reason. Because 2 damage for a mounted and a melee unit is more damage than 2 damage for a range unit for some reason. So don't think that an archer can beat these guys, because these guys are still better than an archer, but just like slightly. I think they attack faster too than range units. So that's what they have going for it too. But yeah, this is the worst mounted unit you could get. Like they're not even fast to compensate for their lack of stat. They just have objectively the worst stats. Then we're gonna go for the horsemen. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. C tier. He has the most speed and I think the most health. I might be wrong on that. Yeah, I'm wrong. These guys have 400 health and 3 damage, I believe. No, 2 damage, actually. Yeah, these guys kind of just slightly better than the knights. Like, I believe when I tested these guys against each other, the horseman would win against the knight, even though the knight does more damage. The cavalry, S tier, the best mounted unit. The only thing that he doesn't have is speed. He's one of the slower mounted units. I feel like he does move slower than the others. I think Lego Battles kind of lies sometimes about units' speed, because sometimes I feel like a unit with 3 speed is faster than another unit with 3 speed as well. It's weird. Like, the Oarman is faster than a cavalry, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't tested speed that much in this game. I've tested mainly damage. Anyway, the cavalry is the best. That's all you need to know. It's the tankiest, has 450 health. It does 3 damage. It's all that you could wish for. The Gripply is a close second. It just barely is worse by 350 health, I think. Oh, he just has less health than the cavalry. That's about it. The Grav Runner, kind of the same as a horse. He has less health but more damage. So I believe the damage, usually if a unit has more damage than another unit, they usually will beat them out. I didn't organize this in any particular order, but I'm going to just do the transport ships first, and then we're going to talk about the other special units. The special units is going to take a while to discuss, but a lot of these have some utility. These are kind of the most varied and most, arguably, some of the most important units on your team. But like for transport ships, I believe it was the Kings and the Wizards being slightly slower than the Kings for straight up no reason. I might have to move you up, because in terms of transport ships, they are, what they do is essentially just move units over water. The boat ones are actually just worse. Oh, I might move these just to talk about the two flying ones, but yeah. Yeah, just leave them. Yeah, just slightly faster than the Wizards. While the two pirate ones, the Pirates and the Governor Broadside, for some inexplicable reason, they have worse health than these two. No reason why. Also, despite these two having the same stats, that attack speed comes back up. The Brickbeards all attack slower than Governors. No reason why it does that. So yeah, don't use the Pirates one, just use this guy, who's even worse. But even then, the default one's still pretty good. However, Gemma's is S tier because it can fly. The Aliens is like slightly worse because it's just a tiny bit slower than Gemma's. Gemma's just, these two just fly. Straight up, flight is better than water. Because they can fly over trees, they can fly over water, they can fly over ground. What could you wish for? They're just, perfect. So anyway, yeah. So back on the topic of the Clipper versus the Barracuda, like the game just does not like Brickbeard. It's just weird. So don't use the Barracuda. Straight up, the worst single special unit. The Clipper is still pretty bad though for this type. So I'm gonna put. All right, where was the first one that you get? Okay, the Ballista. So there's actually 4 different types of special units. They don't really have a category, except the 4th one being the transport ships. So certain special units cannot be stacked on top of each other. So like, you can't have a Ballista and a Clipper. They both are under the same category, which they kind of have like the same vibe in a way, but it's weird how the game kind of categorizes it. So yeah, the Ballista, the Clipper, the Barracuda, the what was it, Siege Tower, and the Clipper, Claw Tank, and the Alien ship. I forgot what the alien ones are. So yeah, these guys all kind of are have to be interchanged between each other, and you can't have 2 of the same of these guys. These 4 right here kind of the same like vibe to them. Like they're like kind of ground units that shoot a single projectile that's high damage. But anyway, let's talk about these guys. So the Ballista is kind of a B tier in terms of all the others, but it's the best one out of these guys. The Siege Tower comes in a close second. The Ballista it has 5 stars of damage, but compare 5 stars of damage compared to the Assault Ship and Starship, this does less damage. Even though these both say 5 stars, doesn't count as the same type of damage. I don't know why this game does this, but the game's damage stars don't always tell the right picture between each, I guess, category. So it's kind of a weird thing to like compare, the ballista versus, the this guy. So, oh wait, 5 stars of damage versus 4 stars of damage. This guy's clearly better in terms of damage, but no, it's you can't compare it like that. So it's just really weird. So I'm just gonna keep you in B tier. Again, these 4 are super similar, but I'm gonna put these these 2 kind of are the same. They're both slower than the ballista, where the ballista is faster. The claw tank, on the other hand, has a problem with its hurt box. So with Gemma's units in particular, they're really fat. So for the most part, units take up 1 square of space. Almost all ground units do, while the claw tank and the boats take up like a 2x2 square. Well, these guys just take up 1 square. So if you try to push this thing through 2 tree or 1 square space of trees, it won't fit. So you actually have to keep shooting it. Although it's not that big of a problem, it's not. It's still annoying to deal with, especially in story mode. There's like a mission where you're in like a crystal forest, and you get the claw tank, which is your only special unit you're allowed to use. And the claw tank's useless in that level because you have to break so many trees just to make this thing go through to attack like 3 units anyway. So yeah, the claw tank's just annoying. These guys are just slower. The ballista's just slightly better. We called the second wave of special units. This is kind of like the largest bulk. So these guys down here are going to be these 6 over here we're going to talk about last. So yeah, these guys, the rest of these guys are kind of interchangeable like these guys over here. But I'm going to discuss these against each other because for the most part, your special units, you can only build a max of 4 special units. Unless you have Hotwire, you have to kind of choose wisely with your units. Like, do you build these guys early on, who are actually cheaper than all these other guys, or do you, start building your more expensive units later, but risk, wasting your money? But yeah, these guys. Who's the first one? Catapult. A tier. Okay, so back on range. So I believe towers have 8 squares of space, while the catapult and 1 other unit have 9. These are the only 2 units, where are you, who have 9 or just the most range. These 2 can outrange everybody else. There's no other units with this much range, because the game does focus a lot on towers, and if your opponent likes to use towers, these guys can just delete towers. Like, the towers don't even notice them. And then for the AI, if you're doing PvE, sometimes the AI just doesn't know they're being attacked sometimes if you use these 2. Like, the Troll Giant and the Catapult are just absolutely great. The Troll Giant being the better one, he's the only wizard unit I would say is the best thing that comes out of the wizards team. Because like the wizards either just worse stats or just slower in special units or just worse. While this is the best thing that the wizard has, which is a sniper base. These 2 are just sniper units. And they also have an AoE move, pretty much. So they do like a little mini explosion when they hit something, which is also great. So they're great at taking out towers. Yeah, so 2 snipers, relatively probably one of the best units. And you unlock the catapult first too, which is crazy. After that is the dwarf glider, which is kind of one of the more boring. Same with you, and yeah, these three. Like I found like zero difference between these three: the glider, the blimp, and the ninja trans airship thing. In the campaign, for some reason, the opponent can use these as like a sort of transport ship, which is kind of weird. But yeah, these guys are like flying units, and I believe these things can't fly over trees. I'm I don't know if it was the dwarf glider that can't do that or just one of these, but yeah, these three kind of just have the same sort of damage vibe. They just shoot a single projectile. They're kind of generic, and they're kind of just whatever units. The Tiki Golem is like probably the worst one to use. It like, although it looks like it has the same like lobbing projectile as these two that have extreme range, but this guy isn't a sniper, and he's not even that fast too. He's just like a generic AOE kind of guy, and he's like one of the worst. Um, yeah, and then you have the Space Police Cruiser and the Space Criminal Attacker. I say these guys are really good. Like in terms of damage, although they show 4 damage, I'm pretty sure they do. I think around the same damage as the Ballista and these guys. Yeah, these things just have like an AOE kind of single straight line explosive move. Yeah, they're great flying units. They also have the weird tree problem. Oh, I forgot about these two. Gemma's weird attack ship thing and the aliens attack ship thing. I don't know what the alien one's called. But yeah, Gemma's is like a solid B tier. It's just worse. It's like these ships, but it doesn't have the splash damage. It also has that weird hitbox thing where it's just super fat compared to the others, like the claw tank. It's just kind of weird how the game does that. The alien strike ship, do not use. It does the same damage as the ballista, actually, even though it shows a 4 or a 3, but it has such a slow attack speed. Like it, it's weird how the aliens one is just straight up terrible compared to Gemma's version, because I think Gemma's shoots faster than the aliens. So like, just don't use it. Just don't even use it. Uh, Now with the battleships are kind of cool. I think if you're doing a water-based level, like a heavy water level where you have to use air vehicles to move your units across bases, then these guys are like B, maybe even A tier. Uh, the Brickbeards being worse because it attacks slower. No reason why, but they just attack slower. Um, Though, if you're not on a water-based level, if you're on a more ground level, these guys are just F tier. So that's a problem with the boats in this game, is that you have to be on a water level to actually use them. And if you don't have a water level, but I'm going to assume you're going to be using these guys in its situation where it's the most beneficial. If you're not using this guy, just use a Troll Giant or one of the flying guys if you want to. But yeah, I believe this is both battleships. They're both called the same thing, like Brickbeard's battleship and Imperial battleship, or battleship, not bounty ship. Yeah, so that's these guys pretty much. But now let's talk about the other ones. So the dragons, the worst. These two have the same stats, so the dragons are terrible. Like they don't have range. They have like 3 or 4 squares of range compared to all these others. Like the most these guys have is like 5, 6, maybe even 8. Well, these guys have like 3. So they're short range. They're kind of tanky. They're really fast and they can fly. But yeah, these guys compared to these guys are just worse. They're super bad. Like you'd rather use 4 ballistas, which are cheap, high damage units, than 4 dragons. Like the catapult's so much better than the dragon too, and on top of that, the dragons are more expensive. They cost like 900 gold, while these other units cost 750 gold. So you're just wasting your money on a unit that's just bad. Like they're good at scouts, but you have much better scouts over here. Next up is the bounty, Brickbeard's bounty, and Governor Broadside's flagship. I think. Yeah, I think it's called the flagship. Uh, it's statistically better than a battleship, but to be honest, you're just looking for more damage, I think, or just more health. They're just slower. Like, don't pick these. Actually, I might just put them in do not use tier just because it's not worth it. But like, if you are forced to not use these two, then fine, pick one or the other. But let's talk about the most overpowered unit in the game, the alien assault ship and Gemma's starship. But the alien assault ship is better because, again, Gemma has a weird hitbox thing where it's just super fat, super chunky. Like, it's, again, you can't fit these guys all together in one spot, so they kind of like cram and like run into each other too much. So unlike the alien assault ships, which are smaller and can be like compacted. So why is the alien assault ship the best unit? It has the most damage. It has 5 stars of damage, and it actually makes that 5 stars known because it has a high attack speed. It has decent health, at least. I believe it was like 700 health, and they have 5 stars of speed like the dragons. The dragons are super fast. The alien ship is just as fast, but it also has damage and range to back it up. Like it just has the same range as the Tower 3, excuse me. And for assault ships, put them behind your opponent's base and watch them cry. Having 4 alien assault ships attack a builder at the same time just kills the builder in one hit. Assault ships can also just do like a very hit and run tactic. So if you see your opponent's hero running after you, you can just make your alien assault ships run away. The only way to counter an alien assault ship is with a hero with EMP. Like 4 alien assault ships can beat almost every hero. All right, so this should be it. Tell me what you think about this list, because we can debate on what some units could be in position wise, because we could probably put these guys up a tier. Though for the most part, this is kind of a general idea of what I believe the ships and the units, especially units, could possibly be in. And from earlier, such as the heroes can be probably the easiest to argue for some to be higher or lower. But for now, this is what I think about the list. So tell me what you think. I'll see you in the next one.